listening to Spicy Thoughts, a piquant philosophical podcast with your host, Devin Steele, together with co-hosts Joshua Golden and Samson Lancaster. Today's topic: does God exist?
All right, welcome. Today we're talking about God and or not God, depending on your perspective. Basically, as long as man has existed, we've had gods, monsters, myths, and all sorts of other supernatural proclivities. And just as long as we've had those proclivities, we've had people who have doubted those things being in existence in any form, or at least literally, what have you. So we're going to talk about that one today. It's going to be a lot of fun. If we want to just dive into our sauce, which is going to be for Sam and I, the Torchbearer Garlic Reaper, which is one of my personal favorites from my collection. And for Joshua over there, we have Frank's Red Hot, which is a bit spicier for him than his last one. I'm going to dive into my Torchbearer before we keep going.
The garlic is really good.
Super garlicky.
I love garlic.
I wish this was a little bit hotter, actually.
Next time.
Makes you really want to devour. Doesn't matter anymore.
If it ever did. So, to kick us off, I think, before we get into any specifics, it's nice to just kind of start from the baseline, because I start to get, whenever God comes up in conversation, I start to get a little bit overly analytical of...
Zealous?
No, not overzealous, over analytical.
Over analytical?
Over what or who do you mean by that? Are you talking about the Christian God? Are you talking about a Hindu God? Are you talking about one of 300 different flavors of Christian gods? What are we discussing precisely? And that can get a little bit unhelpful, realistically. So for the purposes of this conversation, I think I want to keep it at any God versus none at all.
God.
Yeah, God is a concept, not as a specific entity, because that just gets...
Well, then we have to define what God is then, right?
Sure, we can do that. The most universal description that I've ever seen has come from William Lane Craig, who we might discuss a bit later on, which is that God would be a formless, immaterial entity capable of creating the universe. Now, he also includes that it's a personal entity, but I don't think that's required. I think that's a Christian perspective, and he's bringing his own Christianity into
And what
that.
do you mean by personal?
Like the Christian identity of having a personal connection to humanity.
Okay.
So with Craig's definition, he brings that into any God must have that. I think that's limiting. So I think for our concepts, it would have to be something that is non-material, not confined by space, with the capability of creating the universe as we know it. So that could also include an evil God. That's
or multiple gods, right?
Or multiple gods. Yeah, it's any of those things. So any form of supernatural, higher form of life that is not material. So not aliens, right? Because there are people who think that we were created by aliens. That's a different topic. So God is some kind of spiritual, larger than humanity force that could have or did create the universe, versus everything is material. Or that there's nothing immaterial that's greater than us. Because I guess when you get into spiritualism, there's kind of a further distinction there. So God versus no God, God meaning...
So it's from a human's perspective then, obviously.
Yeah, human-centric, for sure. So
would you say, though, that one of your bases then would be that there's... Because you brought it up, like a supernatural, that there is something beyond science's ability to understand.
Supernatural right now.
Right?
I'm just going to go in.
I would say... I don't know that it has to define scientific explanation. It certainly has thus far in human history. I don't know that that has to be the case into the future. But it would have to be something that would be immaterial, not confined by space and time as we are. It would have to be extra-dimensional in that sense.
So would you put, like, Q-level beings as being a godlike being?
I'm not familiar with
Q is
Q,
a character
other
from...
than QAnon.
No, Q is a character from Star Trek.
Star Trek. Yes. Next Generation.
My lack of nerd is showing.
So,
sorry.
I would say that might be a different discussion, Josh, but because Q there are more than one Q, and arguably any of them could have created a universe or a planet or something.
But multiple is okay in this definition, correct? Like multiple gods is okay. Or
I would say yes and no, right? So it's like the concept of all gods, whatever,
like a god level plane.
Well, yeah, I guess a lot of what we've dealt with, probably, especially like growing up, and things that we're might be talking about today, is probably going to be a lot. There's going to be a lot of stuff about Christian God, but if you look at other, you also have like Allah, you have Yahweh, Jehovah, whatever. There's I feel like it's more like a discussion.
Well, you also
of the
have
concept.
Zeus, right?
No, but I think it's more like a discussion of like the one God that rules them all. I guess Zeus could be that one then, yes, but like that's not like really a practicing religion anymore. I guess maybe it's something more current, but maybe that would come up.
Yeah, that would definitely be not in the currents, but it is. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, what do you think, Devin?
Yeah, so we're kind of getting into what I was trying to avoid, which is getting too bogged down in explanation, which I have a very strong proclivity to do as well with this conversation, because it gets really hard otherwise if you don't do that. Because if you say God is or is not this, then you have to be like, well, are you talking about Allah? Are you talking about Yahweh? Who are you talking about? Are you talking about Zeus? Are you talking about, an ancient Mesopotamian God? There's all that. So what we're really just trying to get at is the existence of the supernatural, a higher level being than humanity that is immaterial. That
may or may not have created the universe.
That would at least be capable of creating the universe. Okay, let's predate God slightly, and we can talk about the Kalam cosmological argument in specificity, which is something that's touted by Dr. Craig quite a bit, but it's got some holes, it's got some room for argumentation, so I think it's a good spot to start. Mm-hmm. Which the argument is, just for a refresher for us, and then also for the listeners and viewers if you're not familiar with it, the argument essentially breaks down as whatever begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist, therefore the universe has a cause. And that follows, as a philosophical aside, that follows philosophical argumentation, so that the argument itself is perfect. If the premises are true, the conclusion must be true. So we have to pick apart the premises there. And plenty of people have. But the essential reasoning behind the argument is everything that began to exist has a cause. If I have my sunglasses here, right, these didn't just pop into existence. They were made at some point, at some previous period in time, by someone else. The universe also didn't just pop into existence out of nothing. It had a starting point. It's not infinite into the past. Therefore, it was created in some way. So let's start with that and just see where our heads are. With that argument, does it even sound like it holds water on surface value? And then we can dive in from there.
Yeah, so that argument, I believe, is also uses the Big Bang Theory as its sort of basis, right? Because the Big Bang Theory shows that, in theory, that the universe started at a certain point, which was nothing, and then there was the Big Bang, and then the universe started to grow outward from there. So to be clear, I guess the way the argument is set is that, and this is the Kalam cosmological argument, I believe you said.
Correct.
And is that since that sort of Big Bang came from nothing, that something had to have created that. And so that's where, in this case, God comes into play, where God created the Big Bang, I guess, is what's it said. So I don't know if I could start if you like to.
Yeah, whoever wants to dive in, I'm all in.
I think immediately, one of the things that I saw was also brought up in the argument was of how infinity is absurd or not possible in this reality, Okay, and the Big Bang sort of proves that, because the universe isn't infinite. It started at a certain point. And again, we're not we're laymen here. I don't have any physicists. I'm not a physicist. I'm not a scientist. I'm not even haven't even really studied philosophy. But anyways, so God had to create this from nothing, because it can't be infinite. Well, I feel like the biggest issue I have with that right off the bat is that well, that means that God came from nothing as well, or he's infinite and thus can create the universe. But if that's the case, then God can't conceptually, he can only exist conceptually, not in this reality as infinity, so if you have basically who created God at that point, like that's probably the thing that I start with, that I struggle with at first, very much so, when it comes to using the Big Bang and science in that respect to prove the existence of God.
Yeah, Josh, you want to jump in there before I tackle in? I don't want to cut you out here.
I'm interested. I want to hear what you have to say real quick.
Okay.
I mean, not real quick, but I mean, as long as it takes.
Sure. Yeah, so that's a really common kind of gripe with this argument, and I think it holds some weight to it. It's something too, just for the listeners and viewers, there's a great debate between William Lane Craig and very, very famous atheist Christopher Hitchens, very brilliant guy. Probably my favorite atheist. I think I can say that with confidence. But he also brought that argument too of, okay, well, if you want to say that everything that began to exist has a cause, then what caused God? Well, the only response to that is God didn't begin to exist. And then at that point, I think Hitchens's argument basically boils down to, like, you're essentially breaking into the God of the gaps theory at that point. You're just, anytime you reach something that you don't understand, you just say God, and there we are. Mm-hmm. Like, that's not an answer precisely.
No, but it's how God has been used throughout history.
Absolutely. Yeah, without a doubt. That's how it often is handled. I think the theistic argument to that would be that everything that is material follows certain rules. So I think Dr. Craig made this point, but I'm not positive if he did or not. Whether he did or not, this is the common response, is that when we say that everything that began to exist has a cause, that's everything that we see, touch, feel, smell, everything. Anything that is material, which is why God is immaterial, which is a separate conversation. And which causes its own problems.
Yeah, material things have proof of existence, factual existence.
Right.
Whereas I guess what you're referring to would be like the supernatural or the ethereal, something that doesn't exist on a plane that we can comprehend.
Right.
And so, well, in
things that have been supernatural are no longer supernatural.
Certain things, yes, in the past, things that have
electricity, like that's the reason why I bring up Zeus and I bring up mythology, because I think that this is the natural progression of understanding the universe, right? That the supernatural is only the next evolution of understanding what it really is. But to tell fables and tales gets us enticed, gets us interested in the whole concept of what these things are and what it could do to benefit us. What is this fire? What, and like so you can bring it back to, I really don't believe that the idea that that there is some kind of one true God has been like something that has been disseminated down throughout time, throughout everything. But what we do have disseminated down throughout time and throughout everything is this philosophical understanding that if we manipulate the universe around us, that we can do better than what we had before. And there is a certain level of control that needs to go into a society, but I don't think that the basis of this thing that we're kind of going through. I feel like we're we're children. We're just trying to understand what the hell is going on as a species, what it is to actually be able to think on a higher level, to question, to to build fire, to build, crops of land, and then cities, and then spaceships, and going to other parts of the universe and understanding how much the universe is very different than what we had originally came up with. But there are some hard facts that get us to the point of building a computer, getting us to the moon, getting us to the ability to, if we really wanted to, we could settle Mars. It would cost a lot for our society to do this, but we could settle it, and we could terraform it as we develop and understand. Just at what we're at right now, can't probably terraform it without a lot of resources, but we could definitely colonize it. But exponentially, what we've learned is that we've been able to build a system that allows us to exist in outer space. And I don't think that this requires anything other than our wisdom and our determination to create things. And that we are creators of stories to try and understand the universe, but supernatural is just a story until it becomes fact.
Yeah, for some, I guess so. But to your point, so to the point of how God was an explanation for things that were unexplained. Yeah, with science and other things, we have explained some of those things, and those have become explained things, and they're no longer attributed to God, quotation marks. But back to the original argument of, so God can be infinite because God is not material. God is, cosmic or ethereal or supernatural, which we have no real way to comprehend in this reality apart from what we're doing right now. Or practicing religion, theorizing or just believing or having faith in something. But I guess I want to hear what Devin has to say, again, back to that point. Like, so even though in the argument, the Kalam cosmological argument uses infinity as something that can't exist and that is absurd, I still feel, and this is why I need you to explain it to me. I still feel like, but you're sort of saying that God is infinity. Is that correct, or am I getting that incorrect off by?
So yes, more or less. So infinity can exist conceptually.
Yes,
but it is a physically logical impossibility. So, for example, the Big Bang was proof of something that philosophically you could, or logically even, you could reason anyway, because if the universe existed infinitely into the past, it doesn't matter how many years the universe has existed, we would never reach this point that we're at. So there's an element of infinity that's physically just patently absurd. It can't exist. But that's within the constraints of a physical material universe. So beyond that, we have conception of what infinity is. So it's something that could exist outside of the constraints of materialist constraints, I guess. I just use the same word twice.
Yeah, it's fine.
The Scoville's starting to get to me.
Constraints and constraints, I think.
Yeah, Scoville's starting to get to me. But
which reminds me, we should probably hit this next one because
we probably should.
I broke up the rest of these so that we could have more because we were running out of space here. But I accidentally kind of flubbed this one a little bit extra.
Oh boy, well that'll do well for our mouths.
So yeah, we're gonna get into the discussion now, I think. Oh baby.
And this one just builds and builds.
Oh lordy. It also gets more fluid as you go.
I'm gonna have two.
Oh. I'm not prepping the next one. You. All right, now we're spicy.
I have to put you in the credits as table prepper, in addition to everything else. No. Actually, we don't. That falls under production, I think.
What? I don't know what you said.
That's okay.
Whew, starting to burn in the belly.
Oh yeah, I'm burning nice and good now.
Yeah, that was spicy. But yeah, so
Well, one thing that I just want to real quick ask here is, I guess at this point in time, my major ask would be, what is our personal feelings on whether or not God exists or not, and if you're okay with talking about that.
It's a big ask, but I think we can do it.
It's a big ask.
Do you want to start us off?
I'll start off with saying I come from a belief of agnostic kind of understanding of the universe. It's possible that God could exist, and it's possible that it doesn't need God to exist. Infinity does it all by itself. And you talk about infinity, from my own personal kind of point of view, I guess my God, I would be kind of infinity. This base concept that anything is possible, and that the universe is an example of exactly why anything is possible. And that just by looking around, I can see the absurdity of the universe that it is, and know that there's something unbelievable going on that the human mind doesn't quite understand, that we're part of an equation that's much bigger, whether it's the Matrix, whether it's, the Judeo-Christian God, whether it's Hinduism, whether it's Buddhism. All of these I open up to saying that you all have maybe a little bit of it right. But I can tell you this much, like, we've got a trip for ourselves in the next 10 to 15 million years.
I thought she was going to say next 10 to 15 minutes. I feel like I'm feeling the absurdity right now. This is absurd. 6-figure Scoville already.
Yeah,
so, and I my personal belief is in the belief in humanity, that we've gotten to the point where we haven't nuked ourselves when we could have. We probably, on most betting levels. Okay.
So we do differ a little bit. We differ a little bit. That's good. I don't want to be too similar to Frozen.
Yeah.
Well, real quick, I just want to advocate for either of you, so it's all good.
So real quick on the humanitarian kind of aspect, or the humanist. I really do. I believe in humans. I think that we have a lot of growing up to do, and that we're going to get there, and that I have a lot of hope, and just seeing what we can possibly do, that we are creators. We are trying to build and control the universe that is around us. I think will benefit us.
Okay, I think I'm gonna go because that is spicy. I mean, I feel like it's something that maybe I've struggled with for a long time, but I feel like with the existence of God, I would almost say that God exists for some people. I feel like God is a concept, an idea, a creation of humans, that was, created to serve a purpose, and has served that purpose. I can get into that purpose at some other time, but I also feel that, and it sort of touches on the argument that we started with, is that you have the Big Bang and you have the existence of God, as say maybe a Christian or Hindu or Muslim, or whoever would see or think or feel that. And you have some people might say that science is their religion, which is not entirely accurate. But I would say that when it comes to the Big Bang, it's not proven, right? It's a theory with a lot of not enough, not 100% proven, but it's got a lot of evidence, right? And it's widely accepted and known to be, a very plausible explanation for the beginning of the universe. And so the existence of God, and especially in this case, is based off of that this happened, that this Big Bang happened, and that God created it. Well, that that would be basing the argument on something that isn't proven already. And so I guess just to kind of come back to my personal feeling, I would say that I feel that we don't have enough evidence either way. That we don't have enough evidence currently, like with the Big Bang, to show that it's 100%, though it's very plausible, and I believe that. And with God, I feel like maybe I don't believe it as much, that I don't feel like it's as possible because there's not as much of what I would consider to be evidence. However, things have changed, over time, and maybe at some point science can prove that God exists, or something else does or doesn't exist, I should say, that God does or doesn't exist, because I don't feel like that we can do either right now. So I guess that's how I personally feel. So but to what Frozen said earlier, Josh said earlier, I don't have nearly as much faith in humanity as you do. We're gonna nuke ourselves eventually. The human condition will destroy us all. But
that might be a good isolated episode of its own.
Yeah, exactly. So
faith in humanity.
So yeah, it's a little bit. I think we differ a little bit there, but I still feel like I feel like I maybe a more pessimistic agnostic than what you seem to be a bit more of an optimistic agnostic.
Yeah, I would say for me, I definitely lean more towards the side of theism, but with the caveat that I would agree with what you just said, Samson, which was that we really can't know based on the evidence that we have right now.
So you're a little more like me, but leaning on the God side.
Yeah, I would say when you stack the evidence, as far as I've reviewed it, the evidence leans that it's more likely, from my perspective, that there is a God than there isn't. But I don't think I don't think you can say with definitive proof either way. I don't think you can even be completely confident either way.
Yeah.
I think agnosticism is probably the most logical perspective for a modern person to take. I just think with the studies that I have done that theism makes a little bit more sense to me. But circling back to the Kalam argument also, because you brought up the Big Bang as being a highly, likely theory, but still, not concretely proven. One part of that too is it was a perfectly widely accepted scientific fact that the Earth was the center of the universe for a very long time. So these things change as science improves.
Yes,
and we can understand things better.
Yeah, and to that point too, that at some point things could change and God could be either more likely, less likely, or maybe there is a God, but it isn't what we think it is. Mm-hmm. But also to that point of science, like medicine and stuff improving over time, there was a time when, we thought that bad air or demons made you sick, mm-hmm. right? But now we have the ability to observe microbes and things like viruses and bacteriums and other various germs that we know cause certain illnesses. And washing your hands is apparently a good preventative for almost everything. Like, but we didn't used to believe in washing our hands, right? Surgeons used to believe that the more disgustingly caked on your uniform had blood, guts, and pus, and that had encrusted it over time, was just made you more prestigious as a surgeon. Like, that was a real thing, okay? like that's what we used to think, and things changed over time. And so I see that, over time there could be other things that, prove within science, and it's probably gonna be within, physics, quantum physics, and stuff like that, because it's really dealing with the creation of all things. Because, what is the Big Bang if not the creation of all things? And so maybe that's why I feel like the greater majority that believes in God, or that believes that God exists, might latch on to that bit of science because it explains potentially how all of this was created. So, all you have to do is conveniently put God in front of it, right? And now we're here. Like, oh yeah, well of course God created that because that's how things were created. I got a little facetious there. I apologize.
It's all in the course of good conversation.
It's all in the course of good conversation. But yeah.
I'd want to point out as well one kind of thing that gets a little bit overblown, and I think Dr. Craig overblew it a lot when he refuted Stephen Hawking, is when we talk about the Big Bang, we have the event, the Big Bang, after which we can scientifically track, pretty much how the universe is.
We can't track anything before.
We can't track before.
Not currently.
So as to what happened before, we don't know. That's the correct scientific answer, is we don't know.
Exactly.
What Hawking did when he was refuting the Kalam argument was he tried to theorize philosophically what might have been prior to that, which was something that unfortunately got latched onto. He probably shouldn't have done that. The correct answer is just we don't know.
Which also is just
because that's a fine answer scientifically.
It's creating another concept similar to God, right? Mm-hmm. It's a different theory. As like honestly, God is a theory of how everything exists.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
It is more, as we sort of stated earlier, like a supernatural explanation, because there isn't as much physical evidence. However, when you're looking at how God is described as, not being physical or is metaphysical or supernatural. So I guess that kind of foggies the waters up for me. But again, it's all. I guess that's why I lean more towards the science side of things.
One question I kind of have for both of you is that, do you think that God is required in order to have morals? Like that in order to have meaning, like that this thing that created us for meaning, it has like you said, like, okay, so man creates a spoon. So you being created as a species, if you were born, you should have also a meaning. Like why what's the point of having more children, right? Like what's the point of propagating the human species? But on a higher level, you can look at it as like these, what's the point in being human, right? What's the meaning of being human? And if there is some kind of grand plan that humans are part of, is that required in order to have meaning in life? Or can it come from something? Can meaning come from nothingness? That it can meaning come from the concept that it is important to be human?
I kind of want to stop you there just for a second, because I would say first, yes, I don't feel like morals, or I don't think that God is required for morals for me to exist. I would say, however, that I guess technically in the past, God was basically like one of the first bases for morals. And secondly, or thirdly, I don't do maths here. This is a philosophy podcast, not a math podcast. To say that your morals come from nothing, I feel like is technically incorrect, because my morals come from something I think that maybe we may have discussed before the show. I'm not sure now, but that is basically you treat others how you feel you should be treated, or to be even more to the point of what I actually sort of lived by from a long time ago is, and it harm none, do as thou wilt. And I know that's a religious thing, and I know that's a pagan thing, but the reason I like that is because, and again, it could be different for anybody, because some people might think of harm differently, but anything that made me feel terrible when it was done to me is not something that I would want to do to somebody else. And so to me, the existence of good and evil, or good or evil, good is making people feel good about themselves or not making them feel terrible. And there are a lot of things that can go both ways, right? Like if you're just neutral, that's fine. I still think that's good. Although in some religions, might argue you're still going to hell anyway. Again, sorry, facetious. But when it comes to, like, I as a survivor of trauma, and probably some PTSD sprinkled in there, I feel like that's evil. The stuff that was done to me that hurt me is evil, and I wouldn't do that to other people. And to be good, is sort of the opposite of that. What makes you feel good, doing stuff like this, for example, talking, creating a show for other people to enjoy. That's I feel like that's good. Yeah. So to answer your question, no, I don't think we need God anymore for morals.
So I want to put specifically the question of meaning off, because that's one of our future topics. But for morals, I would say there's a bit of a conflation that tends to happen. Is God necessary for morals to exist or for people to be moral? No, that's demonstrably just true. There are plenty of very moral atheists all over the place. It's just a silly argument to make. People make it, but I have no qualms with calling those people silly people. It's a silly argument to make. So is God required for there to be moral people? No, but God is one of a set of necessary prerequisites to justify that morality. So it's not the only one. You can make other claims to a foundation for that moral to be. So objectivity comes into it here. God is the only objective foundation that can be used for morality. Any other sort of foundation that you want to use for your moral values must be in some sense subjective, which is not inherently problematic. But I just say that's the distinction, is if you are relying on God for your moral purpose, it is because you are proposing some type of objective framework for your.
But isn't that, I see that's where I have a problem with it, because I feel very much more in tune with the subjective understanding of reality in the universe than being able to say that there's a higher authority than me that dictates the way that I act. Because you're just making up that, because all I feel like you could have all of the progress that we've all had, and if you just took out the concept of an overall God, which for a long time didn't even exist anyways. You had stories upon, there was a beginning of the universe, but a singular God that has like dictated that this is what the universe should be, this is what the story is not required. You have this concept of being able to say that there is much more to the reactions and actions that are happening in the multiverse, the universe, that can dictate things. But we regardless of all of the higher level thinkings, this is what we do. We help each other, we better each other, and we hurt each other. But our ability to do good is only coincided with our ability to do evil. But we've been able to do much greater evil than we've ever been able to do before, but we've also been able to do much better good than we've ever been able to do.
Okay, so let me ask you a question specifically, Josh, about subjective morality, because this is where it gets a little tricky for me with subjectivity, is who is the arbiter of that morality then? Is it the individual? Because if it's the individual, then people who do terrible things are justified in their actions. If it's society, why do we base that on? And to them, society?
They are. But it is society, though. That's just the truth. Is that a society dictates what they believe to be moral and they're not, whether they're backed up by God or whether they're backed up by fact or whether they're backed up by, that my tyranny, does better as a world conqueror type kind of thing, has all been kind of played out over the past thousands of years. And we've come to democracy. Makes a lot more sense. It betters your society a lot better than any kind of tyranny that we've seen out there. Maybe that's my propaganda against, maybe these tyranny empires are great. But not to point out anything specific, but just like that tyranny seems to be a problem, like that it hurts the society. Liberation comes from the concept of having a society that is democratic, that we speak to each other. We may be representative, but that all comes from this basis that even if you're going to fake it, you're going to call yourself democratic. It's not, there are certain countries out there that are like, we're democratic, and obviously they're not. But they're going to put that guise on there because it's much better as a understanding of how you want to actually act as a society. So you want to work as multiple people coming together and interacting with each other, instead of saying that one true authority is the thing that's dictating what's going on. And each society is going to be completely different.
So actually, okay, I like where you went there with the one true authority, because that is one of the things that has also happened throughout history, is that God has been used as the one true authority, and God is subjective because a lot of humans have used God to do evil or good, or just, their own bidding, right? Not to go too deep into like religion or anything like that, but like, cause that's probably another topic, but
well, I mean, when we're talking about God, that's,
yeah, we are, but here's the thing though, you can very much be a non-religious person and be, agnostic, or even be non-religious and
atheistic
and believe in God. Not believe in God. Or, and what you can
in meaning.
Yeah, in meaning of the existence or not thereof. But I guess what I'm trying to say is just that to compare it to, I feel like since God is a concept, an idea, that that is subjective and not objective, as much as it is supernatural and not physical.
Interesting. I don't know. I'm tied up a little bit, and it's still in the social construct being what dictates morality, in the sense that at that point, you have to then concede that, say, the American morality is not better or worse than another country's morality. So let's say, and I'm not trying to paint you into a corner, because this is a very extreme bad faith example. I'll even say I'm being a jerk by even bringing it up, but I'm going to do it anyway. But so, for example,
I'm going to let you finish.
But first, so at its core, in terms of moral authority, the United States, then, our treatment of LGBTQ folks in our country is no better or no worse than Russia's, because their society has decided that is okay. Now, specifically, that breaks into Russia is ruled by a tyrant, so that's a little bit different. If the country was free to make its own decisions, that may not be the case. Okay, so take Russia out of the equation. Use Saudi Arabia instead, where it is very much participated in by the majority of the society, that this theocracy that they've established is what they want to go with, and it has its rules that it has. So from a subjective standpoint, it's really impossible to make the argument that that's any less okay than what we have here.
Yes, but also the exact opposite of that. It's not. Is it not any better than what we are here?
Right. There is no better or worse at that point. It's just
hold on. But there is a measurement that we have, and that's how well is your society doing on a level of comfort for your individual people. And America has many. And the thing is that America is not fully along with every other country, is not fully even understood what democracy actually is. In fact, I think that there's other ways of understanding.
We don't even understand what democracy is.
How to build things up. Democracy is a very interesting kind of concept.
We're far more of a republic than we are a democracy.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. We are, much more of, but we do have the ability to interface and interact with what are morals, and that, if you go back 100 years ago, that it was immoral to be gay, And you don't even have to go back that far. But today, we've decided as a society that it is not as immoral, or it is not immoral at all, for somebody to be gay. And I think that that's an evolution of understanding that morals can change, that society does dictate these things. And I think that it's better when your society is not persecuting other people and taking away their rights and infringing upon what is an individual is allowed to do in a society's interaction. I think is better offer for our society. The more that we have freedom of speech, the more that we can disagree and argue with each other in the public square is much more important than anything of like God level.
I'm
that
curious.
Having a dictator that says that this is the way that the world should be, whether it's a god or whether it's a human that's leading the people, whether he says he has God or not on his side, that's not going to be what levels up our society. Our society will level up when people are actually allowed to have discourse with each other and try and we've proven this is much better to have a society that has freedom of thought and freedom of religion, for freedom.
I guess
of
it's like a general like prosperity measurement. I
don't think that's
but
proven.
What's the
though,
measurement?
Because
that's what I had with that. What's the measurement? What is it? Happiness? Is it money? Is it wealth? Is it like civilization? I guess.
Okay, so let me just actually break in. I have two kind of follow-up concerns here. Is that number one is, okay, so it's demonstrable by how the country does that whether their morality is better or worse, because if it's better, then it will promote higher human functioning within that society.
Higher human functioning. There we go.
Right. Or better human functioning, what have you. But I would say in that case, there's not really an argument against tyranny because China's doing excellently overall. They're the world's leader in AI. They're the world's leader in a host of scientific and mathematical studies, as well as accomplishments. Now, if we want to use happiness as a metric or freedom as a metric,
then probably
not so much. But then we'd also have to make an argument for why those things are valuable over what they are providing, which from a subjective standpoint seems difficult to me, if that makes sense. I'm still trying to work it all out in my own head, to be honest with you. So half of what I'm saying may not make sense, but it definitely makes sense because so I'm going to take this into a weird kind of section of like nice. Let's get funky.
There's certain scenarios where being tyrannical is very helpful in the situation that you're in. For example, if you're going to have a fight with like 15 people on one side and 10 people on the other, and you're the 10 people on the other, and the other side is led by just some dude who doesn't give a fuck and just go in, beat the shit out of these guys, and might even sit back and just like watch what's kind of going on, while the other one is got a fortified understanding of exactly what we need to do because we're outnumbered right now and we're going to want to take down this person. Or if there's an extended war that's happening between these two individuals, militarily, like combative wise, of the level of understanding of how we understand how to wage war on each other, it is super helpful. So it allows for very quick, it allows for very stable conditions for a short amount of time. Even the military, if it's not in the sense of war, they're very forgiving on allowing for people to be who they are. And then when it comes to you're in the battlefield conditions, you should probably fall back on all of the training. And yes, tyrannical exercises are going to be happening much greater than you've ever seen before because it's required. You need to follow orders when you're in the middle of the battle. But in general, how you run a society and make it so that it actually is creating comforts for its people that allow for it to not be dictated by one individual, it's always been better. Like, if we're not working for that one person and we're working for each other, and lifting each other up and trying to create. Now, you create problems when you do this. Like, we have a real big prison problem. And that's a lot of our creature comforts that we don't even think about can come from our fucking prison population. Doesn't need to. There's other ways of doing this, but that's, you know, the route that we chose for this country. And it's a problem. And we need to fix some of these problems that we have that create the creature comforts that we have. But I think that there's a lot to be said with how we provide pretty much electricity everywhere. We have plumbing, and we have, I mean, these you'd think would just be, you know, whatever. But for the majority of our history, absolutely fucking not. There's no way that you should have any of these fucking creature comforts whatsoever. And a lot of these places already have these kind of things, whether it's tyranny or not, because we leveled up the entire society to the point that we're at right now, and not just a few people. Where if you would go back in history, more than likely most people, if they understood electricity, would not be letting anybody, if they had the possibility of doing it. Much better if I control the entire concept of what electricity is and how to utilize it and what to do with it. Which is, I think, some of where we get this concepts of wizards and magic. Is that some people figured out to a certain degree, and we used it to control and tyranny, kind of. But once society got to the point of being able to utilizing it, it's much better. I don't know. I guess I'm going off on a tangent.
A little bit.
Well, we just broke off a little bit from morality, but I think that was in there too. Importantly, I think we covered it. We just then covered a little bit extra on top of that, which is fine. Sam, you got anything else you want to say on morality before we move on to another fun fact?
No, I think we can move on to another fun fact.
I want to pivot slightly to a different argument for the existence of God and have us kind of all just weigh in. This is a fun one because it tends to make people kind of angry. So we'll see how this one goes.
That's why we're all red.
So it was popularized by a philosophy professor, and certainly a theist, not atheist. Oh man, that's hard. Someone who believes in God. Someone who believes in God.
That's what I feel like. I really don't like between atheist and theist. It's like, ugh.
It's a really harsh dichotomy. So it's
pay attention.
It's a gentleman by the name of Alvin Plantinga, and his argument. So, are either of you guys familiar with the concept of possible worlds in philosophy?
I mean,
I can give you a quick crash course.
Yeah, give us a crash course.
So, whenever you're discussing or arguing in philosophy, there's the potential to use possible worlds as an example. So you can talk about this world, the real world that we have, a possible other world that exists. So like basically a different conception of the universe where, say, the ocean is green and the skies are blue. The skies are blue.
Or the skies are purple.
Skies are purple, whatever. You know, the chemicals are just such different that is the case. Everything else is the same. And then
they even chemicals in this other?
Who knows?
It could be something else.
And you can go really far out there where things get really crazy. But so there's the concept
Sliders.
of this world.
Sliders.
This concept of this world, which is referred to as the alpha world. Then there's possible worlds, which are all these other worlds where things are a little bit different, but mostly the same. And then there's the concept of something being in no possible world, where it's a world or universe could not exist in which something is true. So the example that's given a lot is there is no possible world in which bachelors are married, because part of the definition of being a bachelor is that you're unmarried. It's a logical impossibility to be a bachelor, which involves being unmarried and also being married. So that's kind of the example given. But anything else, possible worlds, if there's a world where it's possible, that's that. Then there's something called a necessary truth, which are things that are required in all possible worlds. So for example, I didn't think of an example ahead of time. Let me try to come up with one really fast. I guess you could say the concept of worlds is in all possible worlds, because if a world existed in which worlds were not possible, it wouldn't exist. It'd be a logical incoherency. So something that has to exist in all possible worlds is a separate thing. So what Plantinga said was, is there a possible world in which God exists? Can we concede that? Right? So maybe it's not this one. We're not talking about the alpha world. We're talking about possible worlds. Is there a possible world or universe in which God exists? most people, except for atheists, will say yes, it's possible that there's a universe where this is true.
Except for atheists.
Yeah, well, I think atheists would potentially try to say that there's no possible world in which something that approaches God is even possible.
You're not saying that all atheists would say no, but
no,
you're saying
not
that
all
they would be the one that would have the argument that could say no.
If anyone was going to say
agnostic is always going to say I don't know.
Yeah.
So which means that yes, it's possible. Right. Anything's possible, my friend. It's possible that a shark's gonna pop up and just eat you right now.
Exactly.
But it's possible, But
exactly.
Anything's possible,
and that's the difference. That's why I said only a very hardline atheist. So someone like a Richard Dawkins, for example, would say that he would probably challenge there's no possible world where God exists. It's too
my one example for my refute to that is that there's what about the user theory that we're multiple universe, or that we're a simulated universe, and that there's a user that created us, that could be considered God, even if there is more beyond that user that created the user and blah 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 blah. All of that doesn't matter. It matters that there's some dude who made a computer program called Earth. And he's hit the simulation button, and now we're all playing RimWorld, and we're just some fucking number inside of that thing. But there is a possibility that there's a thing that has a reason for our existence, even if it is just scientific or play. We're just part of the computer program.
Sure.
There's a possibility of this, whether or not it's likely, it's very unlikely, but also once it becomes likely, it's very likely.
Right. So what Plantinga proposed was that most people would agree, almost 100% of people would agree that there is a possible world in which God exists. However, he then contends, the nature of God is such that if you believe in God, God created the universe. Therefore, the universe is in a universe where God exists, God is necessary for the universe to exist, which makes God a necessary truth, which means that if God exists in a possible world, he necessarily then must exist in all possible worlds. Therefore,
see, but I refute that though. That's no, because the thing is
I told you this one gets people
I also think there's a possibility that a universe could exist without God. And if that is true, then all universes exist without a God, right? No, both can be true at the same time and still be logical. That there are universes that exist that have gods that have been created by something, and there are universes that exist out there that don't. And that is the whole idea behind the infinite multiverse, universe. Like the whole idea that there's an unbelievable amount of possibilities as to what could be the universe. We're sitting in one of them, and that's the most important part. It doesn't matter whether there was a God that created us or not. Our job is not to do that, to figure out whether or not a supreme being has edict us to do something, because obviously he hasn't, or she hasn't, or they haven't. Because if they had, then we would be a unified society. My argument against a singular God is that if we had a singular God, his edicts would reign true. Like that morality would be objective and not subjective. Because if it was objective and it was something that rained down through humanity at its core, then we would all say that this is 100% the way that the universe needs to be, and we wouldn't be fighting like we do. There is not even close to a majority of people, and I would say that you would have to get like 90% before you would get somebody that says that there's one being who said, do this and be this way. Because we all have, and even the ones that say that there's just one, they have all like broken up in their factions on what is that one. It's trying to create a thing that says that this is the way that the world works.
But to the back to the argument, I feel like that's a similar argument to infinity being absurd, right? And that you have, well, if if there's a possibility in one of these possible worlds that God exists, then they have to exist in all worlds. It's like Frozen said, it would also seem to ring true for the opposite of that, because if there is a possible universe where God exists, then there's definitely a possible universe where God doesn't exist. And so I think it still just feels like that it
feels a little gross, doesn't it?
It feels a little gross, and it's sort of like, but it's also, I think, to sort of maybe conclude my thoughts on the main topic, I guess I would say, is that I still feel like, personally, there's not enough evidence either way. Right? There's not enough evidence to prove that God exists. There's not enough evidence to prove that God does not exist. But
I would say that there is evidence to support that morality exists.
Yes, but we're not talking about that. Exactly. We're not really talking. We're not really talking about morality, because that's a whole separate discussion. I feel like a whole other topic, right?
It could be. We could pencil that in.
Yeah, or it could be next season, but whatever. But the point is that I guess if you're getting to the point of why God was created, because God was created, as a concept for stuff like morality and things like community and growth in society, and sure, it worked great and well to a certain point, but now we have science, we have other things, government, and things that obviously none of it's infallible, and a lot of it's terrible, but to try to stay on that. I still don't think that there's one way or the other, but it also goes for, and I only bring this up because it's part of the original argument, the Kalam cosmology argument, is that the Big Bang is the same way, right? Granted, we have maybe more evidence to prove its existence, but it's still not fully proven, right? Either way. Like, there could still be a discovery that happens that changes that, because it happens all the time.
That's what science does.
The idea behind science is that anything is just a theory. There's still a theory of gravity, but it's a good theory. Is
there a possibility in the future that science can prove God exists? Sure. Is there a possibility in the future that science can prove God does not exist? Sure.
Well, you can't prove a negative, and that's a problem.
Yes, well, that goes on to the proof of the burden of proof, right? So that's if well,
the burden of proof is on the person to make it. Yeah,
the person that asserts that God exists, then they have to prove that God exists. Yes. But so God has never been proven. Therefore, scientifically, we know that God doesn't exist at this. Well, I guess okay. Let me reel that back a little bit.
But eventually, a God could be proven.
Yes, but I'm not saying. Okay, I'm not saying necessarily that a God could be proven not to exist through science, but a God could be proven to be something else that isn't what greater society thinks of as God. Maybe it's exactly. So
maybe it's the great machine that wants to create.
So there's science could prove that yes, God as people think God exists, did that thing or whatever, created the universe through the Big Bang, or maybe it's something entirely different. I mean, you spoke, not to go off on too many tangents, but you spoke of simulations and other things like that. And again, aliens I think is another topic or something else entirely. Because aliens would indicate physical and not like supernatural, metaphysical. But
you could have demons and angels and stuff like that exist, and then it would be a supernatural level of
yes, or
alien,
demons and it could be explained through that. But anyways, I guess I just wanted to say that's what I feel like. I would say no, God. Well, God only exists as a concept or a idea currently. Like Santa Claus, the Tooth Fairy, created to serve a purpose. Yeah, I know it was a cheap shot, but I had to throw it out there at the end. But you know, that could change in the future. I guess it's possible. Anything's possible, sort of.
All right. Well, I will say if there's nothing further, I'll give my kind of final thoughts. We can move on to our sauce review. But I will say, you know, burden of proof is an interesting concept because I've stayed pretty neutral, but now I'll give a little bit of my own kind of view on it. You know, when we talk of burden of proof, religion, belief in magic and the supernatural and things that we don't fully understand has been around since the beginning of humanity. Science has been around in force for like 200 years. Mm-hmm. It's been longer than that, but in force as a really important social function has been a couple hundred years. Science is very much the new kid on the block. So I have no problem with saying that there is not scientific evidence for God, and that's fine. But when people start to say that if there is no scientific evidence for this at this time, that is an argument that that thing is not in existence, that starts to rub me the wrong way a little bit. Because science is imperfect, very much so. We're constantly
by its definition, right?
Yeah, we're constantly improving scientifically. It's what we do. Is as we understand things better, then we design things to measure things better, and then when we measure things better, we then understand them better, which causes us to redesign the things to measure, and so on and so forth, infinitely.
But that would imply that God is perfect, and thus infinite. Once again,
yeah, which is not at all contradictory.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
I'm not sure I understand where you're going with that one, but
no, I'm just saying that so saying that science. So if you're comparing science and God, and science is the new kid on the block and is imperfect and is constantly improving, that God has nothing to improve.
Correct.
And thus is perfect.
Correct.
And thus is infinite.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. Well, okay.
Because
so one thing
which
that
is
this is a concept that we're talking about, though, because I'm saying, I'm saying, and stated actually in the cosmological argument, that infinity is not does
physically
not exist,
possible,
or it's not physically possible, or
yes.
does not exist in this reality.
Yes.
Yep. So go ahead.
Okay. Real quick, my one thing, real quick, that I want to put out there is that science would be the next level up of supernatural dictating. Like it's just always, I feel like saying that it's only been dominant in the like what people would argue back and forth. But I would say that science has always existed, and that it's part of the whole aspect of what religion is, and what like it just is,
or just nature, human nature of does the fire burn me? Okay, I'll stop touching the fire. That's technically an experiment,
right?
I guess I should have thrown in my cheap shot warning.
As an institution, perhaps science hasn't widely
as a replacement for anything else. Okay. I should have thrown in my cheap shot warning. That was my cheap shot.
All right.
I sat patiently through a lot of that and had to throw my own in there for good measure. I will also say that there's part of believing in something, whether you want to call it God or whether you want to call it something else. It doesn't really matter what you name it. But I make a conscious choice as an individual agent that I choose to believe that things are not simply material and that's the end of it. It could be. I could very much be wrong in that decision, but I choose that nonetheless because I would prefer to live in a universe where good and evil exist, where those things are measurable. And
I sort of feel like I live in that universe too.
Yeah, I think you do.
I have a different concept, or it doesn't so much spurn from God. But yes, I good and evil at the most basic. Yeah, they exist. I prefer that evil didn't, but it does, and there's not really much you can do about that except be good.
Yeah. And,
I agree too. No, I feel in the same kind of regard. I feel like there is meaning to the universe, and that there is meaning to existence, and that this is I'm excited to be in existence. I love this universe, man. This is fucking awesome. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, aliens, for creating this TV
show. No, it's a great existence, and I think what it starts to get into when we talk about science is that I think science doesn't provide meaning. It doesn't provide magic or beauty or anything. Those are all subjective things. Science is very rigorous, objective,
I mean,
view the chimpanzees under these situations and mark down how they react.
So I think that both of them are kind of shadowed into weird light that is like obscuring it to what they actually are. Mysticism and science. Okay, science has had problems I think one of the problems that we have right now is that you're talking about the concept of like being able to measure that science hasn't been able to prove mysticism at all. Like, and I guess my question would be, is that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It just means that there are some things that are eluding science, and that it might take millions of years.
And also, I will say this though, that it has proved some things, because there are certain, medicinal practices, that may have been considered just, like mystical or whatever, but it just happens that they figured out that this herb, did the thing that helped you sleep or helped cure a wound or something like that. It's before there was further investigation into it to prove scientifically or physically speaking that's why it does this, you would just say, well, it's it's the whatever, it just is how God, it is how it is, it's magic,
right?
Pheromones because I do great example of that.
Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah, no, exactly. Pheromones, yeah.
Oh, pheromones.
Yeah, that's another thing where it's like, okay, the way that we interact with each other, there's this mystical layer, and then science is able to say, well, it's actually these, chemicals, whatever. But anyway, and I'm not trying to say that either of you guys are taking that stance, but some people do with the hardline science. Everything is, check marks on the board. I don't think anyone here made that discussion or made that point. I was just saying that point exists.
But and you do make a good point that there is that faction of people. I don't know. I find this really interesting because I dabble in concepts and dealing with the idea of what is reality, and that there is a very strong technocratic presence in the universe, and there is a very traditional sense of what is going on in our universe. And the influence of science in making things dead and like removing meaning from life and being part of the cog of the machine of what people want to make out the universe to be, because we can make machines, and therefore it's possible that maybe we are just a cog inside of the machine, doesn't mean that there isn't other possibilities, and that there is possibilities of unbelievable what this universe actually is. I think that stealing the soul of the universe and saying that we've figured out everything that's kind of needs to be figured out to what this universe is stupid and childish, and most people actually don't think that. In fact, most of the people spouting most of the shit is most of it, I feel like, is that if you spout shit and bullshit and you use it to control other people, and you say, I know the way, we are so focused as a society and as an individual to try and understand what the fuck the universe actually is, that if one person can stand up and say that he's confident enough to know that this is what the universe is, a lot of people are willing, in the thousands, millions, possibly billions, trillions of people that are willing to subjugate themselves to that one thought. But that doesn't necessarily make them right. That just makes them more confident. And that there is a baseline level of understanding of our universe that we're leveling up. That, as a society, from the ape people that we were, or the people that at the very least, whatever your belief in going back, but like, we didn't know fucking shit back in Egypt, okay? We maybe built some pyramids. That was pretty cool. But in general, we've really leveled ourselves up. Like, look at what we make now. Look at what we do. This is fucking crazy. Like, if you took any of those people at 2,000 years ago, plopped them in today, they'd be like, you all fucking mages, magical motherfucking sons of bitches. You are gods of Zeus. You're Zeus. Look at what you did. You built you're recording all of the shit, you must be. Look at all this
I certainly-
electricity.
I certainly feel like Zeus eating a sauce. So
Yeah.
let's,
Right.
that's the God not God conversation, such as it is. Let's unless there's any closing thoughts, let's move on to sauce notes.
Sauce notes. We'll hit. I
Talk
think
about
for
the
sauce
sauce.
notes, we're gonna hit this last piece
hit
here.
this
that's
last one.
Thoroughly fucking
We
drenched.
saved one. Yeah, I'm gonna even mop up some of this leftover because I haven't had one.
I do
for a
not
couple
have.
months.
Oh, you know what?
I love this sauce so much.
Well, that's
So, the garlic reaper for me is a must-have
Torchbearer garlic
in my
beans.
house at all times.
It's really good. It has really good taste, flavor.
I refuse to not have a bottle of that in my fridge, always.
Nice.
So garlicky, so hot.
Yeah. So I will say that it has a really good flavor. Like the garlic reaper sauce has a really good flavor. It is made with Carolina Reaper. It is extremely hot, but not as like what was the doing it with Scoville is?
Yeah, Scoville on that one is roughly 116K.
Okay, so from the first episode, we've more than tripled.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little more than tripled.
And the heat feels it for sure.
Yeah, you can feel it. But I think I don't know if it was in the show, but you did give a warning that it sort of like creeps.
It creeps over time, yeah. for
Over
sure.
Yeah.
I'd say it's one of the most flavorful sauces I've ever had that's over six figures. Because
Yeah,
usually
it
for me, once it
hurts.
starts getting into the hundreds of thousands, it starts just tasting like
It hurts.
pepper and or vinegar.
And it's this is
And
very
extract,
much like
depending on the brand.
what like a paste.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
Oh, it's so good.
Ooh.
So I
Let's
would
see.
say for the Frank's Red Hot was not actually that hot. I wasn't feeling the pain at all from that, but was still pretty good. Like in general, it was I actually think that now I prefer a little bit more hot, where it makes me kind of go take a step back and go, okay.
Well, we might bump it up a little bit next time.
I,
but
I think we've hooked him now.
I don't think you're quite here yet, but we can get you there.
Yeah, we'll get him there. He's got the spirit.
You got the spirit, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, I'm down. I think I'm gonna see if the next episode that we have, it looks like you've got an 8,000 Scoville. I kind of want to just try it and maybe have other things on standby for me, but I'm gonna try it.
let me just correct you on that. That's not 8,000. That's 800,000.
It's
800,000.
That is
800,000. Yes, 2 zeros.
Yeah, so that's that. I mean, that's in the future. We have lots of fun sauces and more topics, I think.
Oh yeah, we got a lot. I don't know about y'all, but I'm ready to do this for a long time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What was it that we say at the end?
Stay
Stay
spicy.
Thank you for listening to Spicy Thoughts. You can find us on YouTube at Spicy Thoughts Podcast. Contact us with your spicy inquiries at spicythoughts@strcast.com. Created by Devin Steele and Samson Lancaster.